Afternoon, Andy. How are you?
Doing good, Peter. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm very good indeed. Thanks. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today, and welcome to the Business Spotlight. Andy, could you tell me a little about yourself, your background, and your business, please?
Sure. So I'm the CEO of a company called Porous Liquid Technologies, or PLT, as we refer to ourselves as. We're a spin out of QUB and the University of Liverpool, unusually two universities there, and we're kind of focused on industrial chemical separations, developing both the chemistry and engineering that allows them to deploy new solutions in the industry. We're particularly interested in carbon dioxide capture or carbon capture. And we've been sort of developing this technology from research that's been developed at Queen's. And we're sort of moving towards a phase where we're going for commercialization shortly. Now, our systems are a change from the traditional solvent-based systems. We believe that we can reach about 80% energy savings compared to those traditional energy, just sort of the traditional carbon capture systems. So we're really sort of making huge steps forwards in the way that this is being done and how it's been sort of evolved within different industries. So I've been in chemistry for about 30 years. I've been with PLT for 3 years now. Firstly as the BD manager, first employee of the company, and now I've taken over as CEO in July. We're now 5 people in the company. We're expanding out. We're hoping to be about 10 by the end of the year, and we're currently hiring for project managers and chemists to come in.
Well, congratulations on your appointment as CEO. What has driven the growth of the business?
It's really about the sort of the growing recognition that energy solutions and polluting the atmosphere is an unsustainable solution for the world. So there's a race for chemists to do something that we can actually sort of deliver something. I mean, chemists are the sort of unsung heroes of the world. We produce the chemicals that you take when you're ill. We produce the sort of genome sequencing, but we kind of keep it hidden. But in terms of carbon capture, this is where we step forward and say, we're actually going to make a difference. And there's a lot of groups around the world developing different solutions. PLT is part of that jigsaw, and we hope that our solution is going to be the one that gets taken up as the lowest energy costs.
And what was it that took you down the chemistry route? Was this born from an interest in school, or where did that come from?
Yeah, so it goes back to when I was 17 and choosing what I was wanting to do at university. I had two options. I was either going to do English or I was going to do chemistry. I'm quite an abstract thinker in the first place, so I decided to move down the chemistry route, and I'm very, very glad that I did that, much as I still love English literature. Um, so I've been doing that for 30 years. Firstly as a bench chemist, I was worked in pharma and genomics. And then about 10 years ago, I moved into the oil and gas sector, and I started to see how chemistry and chemical engineering can meld into real world solutions, which is kind of leading to the sort of carbon capture side of it. So I worked internationally since I started within, I'll say traditional energy, but oil and gas is what we're going to call it. So I've worked everywhere from the Arctic Circle up in Alaska down to, refineries in Malaysia and probably every single dusty little town in between as well. And during that time, built up my network, understood how businesses started working, how R&D was working within those environments. And then in 2022, the opportunity came up at PLT after we moved on from our last company. And it was just too good an opportunity to pass up. And obviously, my career journey from BD to CEO in such a short space of time has been great for me as well.
And how have you found that transition from the chemist, the technical background to BD to CEO? How have you found that?
It's to be honest, it's a Venn diagram. It's never been sort of, a complete step away. When I was at the bench, I was learning how to do BD, doing customer facing roles, and then it became BD. And then, as I moved into smaller companies, I got more exposed to sort of corporate governance and finance and things like that. So it was the sort of step through. So I've not forgotten my roots, but yeah, bench chemistry is a young guy's game now, and I'm not interested in going back and doing that ever again. So
Well, you've taught me a new term. I love that, a bench chemist. So I like that. I'll have that marked in my head. And I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark here, Andy, and say that I'm picking up an accent that isn't from Northern Ireland. Would that be true?
it's true. I'm from just across the water in Glasgow originally.
Okay. What was the story that brought you to Northern Ireland? Was it PLT?
It, yeah, it was essentially the business opportunity. I'll confess that I'd never actually visited Northern Ireland before I started this job. And I've grown to love it over the last 3 years. I had previously worked down in Cork, down in the Republic. So, it's kind of, I've got a great feeling about being over here. But it really was about the job. I thought I was originally starting as a sort of remote role, working in Glasgow doing BD, but as the company grew and we've taken lab space and office space, I became a lot more operations focused, and that means that I can't be sitting in my house in Glasgow all the time. I need to be here sort of dealing with things hands on. And I think it's better for the sort of guys for me to be around and for them to ask me the questions that they need as and when. I can still roll my sleeves up and be involved in the chemistry and engineering as needs to be as well, but it's not my preference.
And so tell me about your target market. Who could benefit the most from engaging with working with PLT?
Yeah, so our target market is really companies that are focused on gas separations or liquid gas separations. Essentially, where you can take one component out of a gas stream or a liquid stream, capture it within the liquid, and then allow the rest of it to pass through. So we're at the moment sort of progressing that through our technology, showing that it works with biogas to biomethane at a site down in Banbridge. But we have a much wider potential. We're doing biogas to biomethane as our first vertical, but we're also doing point source capture, which is sort of flue gas coming off of things like cement plants. And we're doing direct air capture, which is hoovering the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere directly, which is a much, much bigger challenge. We work best with sort of forward-thinking industrial partners, people that know that it's not just about sort of greenwashing it. They actually build sustainability into their markets, into their sort of business plans. And they want this to happen. They want to sort of revolutionize the way that they're doing that as part of it. So our clients, our best clients, are the ones that see that need and are actually willing to be collaborators with us in this journey as well, to support us both financially, which is great, but in supporting the deployment of our technology to their sites. So it's really a sort of synergistic relationship that we've got with our client base.
And what would you say has been your biggest lesson since becoming CEO?
Since becoming CEO. I guess it's my background is I was working at sort of senior management level before, so moving into this role, I've kind of taken the lessons on board. Just to sort of give you a little bit of context, like my PhD is in something called total synthesis, where you get a huge molecule and you need to build it up multi-steps. And you need to be thinking 10 steps ahead at very, very minimum, but always in the bigger picture. You can probably see how that sort of fits into the business. Like things will go wrong. There's going to be challenges. Funding cycles change. There's technical hurdles along the way. Markets move in the way that you don't really expect them to. So it's really about sort of being able to sort of pivot and adapt to that, but also sort of being able to sort of concentrate on that longer term picture and making sure that you're actually hitting, you're moving towards that goal no matter what turns up. So you've got tactics and you've got strategy. Strategy is the most important thing, but being tactical in the way that you approach that is key to how you deliver the business.
And what have you learned about yourself along your business journey, Andy?
What I would say is not getting stuck in a very narrow comfort zone. Always try and push yourself into areas that you'd never sort of consider yourself to be like. When I started, I was a bench chemist, a term that you like, but working in a safe environment lab, it was very 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of job. And then I sort of moved into traditional energy. I was working offshore. I was having to adapt to, different conditions. When I went to Alaska, I actually got a certificate to say, you're now trained to what to do if a polar bear attacks you, which is pretty unusual for somebody from Glasgow, I would say. But it's kind of what I would say is that success isn't about avoiding risk; it's about dynamically approaching it and understanding how that actually fits within the sort of the framework of what you're trying to do. So whether it's science or whether it's leadership, always push yourself forward, always take the risks, don't overanalyze the situation and move forward as best you can. I actually think your sign behind you says exactly what I've just said there, but a slightly more concise way.
Very good. And who's influenced you along the way? Who's been an influence on your journey?
I would say probably the biggest influence is a lady called Dr. Emma Perfect, who is the CEO of my last two companies. Now she'll absolutely cringe if she hears her name mentioned in this sort of context because she's very modest kind of lady. But she was the one that sort of really showed me how to deliver leadership. She showed me that, you provide people with a framework, but don't micromanage them. Allow them to develop within the framework that you set them, but allow them to grow within the company. So treat people as partners, not as staff or economic units. She also was the one that gave me the crash course in managing a small science business, everything from governance to finance to product delivery. So I think a lot of what I bring to PLT is actually a reflection of Emma. And if any of my team have the fortune to meet Emma, they'll sort of see her mirrored in the way that I approach the business as well.
Very good. And so what gets you out of bed in the morning? What drives your passion for your business?
I would say, first of all, on a sort of egotistical level, legacy. I want to deliver something that's actually meaningful change for the world. So, right now, chemical separations process account for about 15% of it global energy demands. Now, if we can deliver what we think we can deliver, we can bring that right down. So, it's not just about improving efficiency, it's about sort of driving economics of carbon capture and gas separations downwards so that they actually become more feasible and less emitting themselves. So that's the kind of impact that drives me. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think Northern Ireland is became home for me as well. It's not exactly known for its clean tech sector. It's got a great manufacturing background, but we're there's some companies growing up here like ourselves, ADA, Catagen, who are trying to change that perspective. They're trying to build something that is a clean tech, deep tech sector in Northern Ireland. And it's great that we're starting to get that through because I think in Northern Ireland, we have great graduates coming out of places like Queen's and the University of Ulster, but we're losing them. We've got a bit of a brain drain going on here. So it'd be great to sort of build a new industry in clean tech in Northern Ireland to keep these jobs in Northern Ireland and to allow people to sort of stay where they've grown up and develop something for the province itself.
And what about if you were on a desert island and could pick a book or podcast or either or both, whatever to listen to, read, what would you do? What gets you motivated or gets you going?
It's going to be a bit geeky, this one. It's a book called Mendel's Dream by Paul Strathern. It's a brilliant exploration of how humans have sought, to understand nature through chemistry. So it combines a journey from the very beginning, the philosophers from the four original elements through the Enlightenment to where sort of modern chemistry is. It's got some great stories in it about how, for example, phosphorus was discovered. A guy was trying to find gold in urine, so he was boiling down tons of this stuff, trying to find gold, but he actually found something that was, in my opinion, more valuable. But it's got small stories like that. But the book's title, Mendeleev's Dream, it comes about because the guy called Mendeleev, he was trying to figure out how the elements work together in a sort of pattern, and he had these cards and he was putting them together, and he was seeing patterns, and he was starting to get somewhere, and then he fell asleep. And it all came to him in a dream. And what those cards became is the periodic table that everybody knows and loves today, or well, may know and love from chemistry lessons back in the day. But I mean, to me, that says sometimes you just need to take a step back. Sometimes you can be too close to the problem. You just need to have that moment reflection, that step back, and it allows you to sort of see the bigger picture. And I think, you know, in business as well, that's an important thing. So the book is genuinely good for the stories it brings, but also in, the what it delivers to the business reader as well, I'll say, just for this podcast.
Excellent. And tell me, what's the biggest challenge that you're currently facing in business?
Um, I'll say this, the biggest elephant in the room just now is Brexit and how that's sort of causing recruitment to be an issue for us at the moment. So we work in a very specialised area of chemistry and engineering. And while I've said that, there's great talent coming out of Northern Ireland, the truth is that we may need to sort of recruit externally, internationally to get people in. And at the moment, it's not easy for us to do that. That's the real issue. Whenever I put a job advert out, I've got great candidates coming from Europe, but I need to go through sponsorship license and jump through hoops to be able to get them over here, which is a big challenge for me at the moment. Getting the right team in place is absolutely fundamental to growing a small business and having the right skills in place. You can't limit your talent pool. You need to look wider. And I think Brexit has really sort of made that much, much more difficult for companies like us.
And is there any sign of that improving, or is that going to be an ongoing?
I think until the mindset about it changes, it's going to be a problem for us. We're going through the process of applying for Home Office sponsorship license just now, and to try and sort of circumvent some of these problems. But there's still a lot of paperwork that goes alongside that, and it could be a lot easier.
And what about let's go completely off pace then. If you could invite any three people to a dinner party, who are you inviting?
Okay. So again, I'm going to take a chemist as the first one. So Marie Curie is the first one. She's
Okay.
not just a great scientist, she was a complete outlier for her time. She worked in an era where women were barely accepted in scientific circles. but went on to become the first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes, man or woman, in 2 different sectors. And she also never ever patented her discoveries because she wanted it to be for the benefit of mankind now. So that may not be great from a business perspective, but she was very forward looking about how science can actually sort of move things forward, discovering 2 elements. I know it would just be brilliant to have that conversation to see how she sees science today compared to back in her time. Second one, I'll say Steve Jobs. So I'm recently sort of converted to Apple. As a sort of higher end user of, I don't need to deep dive into computers anymore. So that design phase, the leadership and everything that Steve Jobs brought to Apple, and developing bits of technology that people don't just, it's not just a computer, it's something that they desire. The user experience, the design, it's all amazing. I think he would be very sort of forthcoming on everything from design ideas through to leadership potentials, and that would be that sort of second point of the triangle. Third point would be Ernest Hemingway, basically because he's one of my favorite authors, and I think he would bring great crack to the table as well. So I kind of have a bit of a shared sort of history. I moved to Paris when I was 20 years old, like Hemingway did back in the day. And he had this great quote from an autobiographical book which says, if you're lucky enough to live in Paris as a young man, then wherever you go for the rest of your life, it stays with you, for Paris is a movable feast. And like 100 years between us, that still resonates with me. So I think he would be the one to keep the conversation and the drink flowing, but I think we would have a good sort of dynamic at that table anyway.
That would be a great night, to be fair. Very good. That's an eclectic table. And what if you could go back in time and give some advice to your 18-year-old self, Andy? What would that sound like?
What I would say, maybe the way I was when I was 18, I sort of overthought things, overanalyzed. I mean, sometimes you get to a stage where you've got so much data, but you need to move ahead with it. So don't don't hesitate, don't overthink. Trust your gut more than you did back in the day. But you have to get to a point where you make a decision and move forward. So I know it's dead easy to get caught in a loop, waiting for those perfect conditions. I tell myself, just move ahead, seize the opportunities as they come, and see where it takes you. Because in 30 years' time, you're going to be sitting in Belfast having a conversation on a Friday afternoon. So
Yeah, that's great advice for anyone in progress over perfection. And what about let's instead of looking back, let's look forward. So what does PLT look like in 5 years' time?
sure, 5 years' time, we are currently sitting in a lab in Queens. We'll be moved out here. We will no longer be a purely R&D company. We'll have delivered our first small-scale commercial reactor for use in biogas to biomethane. This is all in the plan just now, but on top of that, we'll also be sort of moving through with deployments of our point source technology and our direct air capture technology with our partners in the US. I think we've got a great nucleus of a team at the moment that's only going to build into something bigger. And hopefully we'll be building part of an industry within Northern Ireland in clean tech, deep tech, along with the other companies that I mentioned, and actually bringing something new to the economy of Northern Ireland.
And if somebody likes what they've heard, Andy, and would like to reach out, get in touch with you or the business, what would be the best way for them to go about that?
We have a website that is going to be going through redesign soon. There's a contact form in there. You can drop me a line on that, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Andy Osnowski. Just pop me a line on that and I'll get straight back to you. I'm always open to having conversations about anything chemistry-wise, as you've discovered yourself,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
business-wise.
This has been a big learning afternoon for me today. Great. Well, look, Andy Osnowski from PLT, thanks very much for taking the time to chat with me today and share your story. It sounds like an exciting time ahead for PLT, and I wish you and the team there every success for the future, Andy. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, Peter. Great to speak to you.